All right, so on Joe Rogan's most recent podcast with Malice, Michael brought up the Howard Stern show, and he started talking about how much Howard has changed throughout the years and how great the show used to be. And he even started talking about Stuttering John. He got a shout out. He's probably going to love that. And now he's probably thinking he could make it on the Joe Rogan Experience. So if you didn't know, Joe actually does have a history with Howard. He used to go on the show quite a bit in the early 2000s, but then he stopped going on there because Howard kept trying to expose him as a misogynist, which is hilarious coming from Howard. And then obviously more recently, Howard's criticized Joe's podcast and his stance on vaccines. So him and Joe aren't really cool with each other, but it sounds like Joe still appreciates what Howard's done throughout the years.
What do you think of what Howard's become recently?
Well,
He's the only person I know who's gone, other than Penn maybe, who's gone from being red-pilled to blue-pilled.
Yeah.
For people who don't know, let me do a little, because the kids these days don't know.
Yeah.
Howard Stern had a guy in his show, Stuttering John, and he would send them out to talk to celebrities, and he would ask them the most. And this wasn't before. This was before social media, so they had usually used to have a barrier. You can't just tweet at someone. So when Jennifer Flowers in '92 was announcing that she had an affair with Bill Clinton, people thought he was going to sink his candidacy. He sent his boy there, and he asked her, "Did he use a condom?" And then he asked her, "Are you planning on sleeping with any other presidential candidates?" And the reporters there were and they're trying to kick him out, but like he would do, when he had, and it's really kind of funny when he had these comedians who had like a stick up. Like I remember he talked to Billy Crystal, and Billy Crystal like, "Oh, let me have it," and he's like, "All right, are you going to be making a sequel to Mr. Saturday Night, like his big bomb?" And the look on Billy Crystal's face, just the pure rage, was absolutely hilarious.
God, that's hilarious.
Man, Stuttering John is going to love this. This is probably the most publicity he's gotten in like 15 years. And even though he's the most annoying person ever, I don't think anybody liked him. He was the worst. Those bits he did when he went out and interviewed people and asked them inappropriate questions, those were hilarious.
Did Governor Clinton use a condom?
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to put this to a stop if there are any further questions that are degrading, in my opinion, like that. Now, right here.
It's a social issue, you know.
Right here.
Was there ever a threesome? Jennifer, will you be sleeping with
Right here.
Will you be sleeping with any other presidential candidates?
And there are compilations of these bits that he did on YouTube you could check out if you want. I think I had some of them in this video where I talked about whether or not he should have stayed on the Howard Stern show or gone to Jay Leno, because he was the announcer there for a while, which Joe and Michael talk about for a little here.
Yeah, he did some wild shit. And then I guess he had a falling out with Howard. Then he went over to Jay Leno.
Yeah,
he
now
was
he
the
just-
announcer of the Jay Leno show. So that was a great gig for him.
No, but
he was like very underrated.
I don't know if I heard that right. Maybe he's referring to somebody else, but did Joe Rogan just call Stuttering John underrated? Man, John's going to be going nuts after this. He's probably going to be so hyped up if he hears about this. I think Joe needs to invite him on the show. No, he'd never do that. But it is funny how lucky John got throughout his career. Like, I think the only reason Howard hired him is because he had a stutter. And then Jay Leno hiring him for The Tonight Show, that was a huge break. He was making a ton of money. And of course, he was terrible at his job, and I don't think that lasted very long. But Jay's a nice guy. I think he kept him on the payroll for like years. But there was a rumor that John was working as a substitute teacher recently, and now he has this pathetic show that he does where everyone just goofs on him. There's like a whole subreddit dedicated to goofing on him. And Shuli from the Howard Stern show, his whole channel is just goofing on Stuttering John now. And he probably gets like 10 times the views Stuttering John does. So like all the Howard Stern guys now just goof on Stuttering John. It's awesome.
Like he just was willing to, but there was like that call, what he had created was a morning show that you had to listen to. Like you would go to work and you go, "Oh my God, did you hear Howard?"
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, did you hear? And he did it every day, and it was a super valuable thing because it didn't exist anywhere else. If we're around today, we have all these like social media memes that are hilarious, and we have like Reddit threads that are hilarious. There's a lot of stuff out there where people are being outrageous. But back then there wasn't.
Right, it was just
so
Howard.
you had a job where you're like sitting in a truck all day delivering packages or whatever it is, and in that morning when you get to work, you're listening to Howard Stern, and he's got some lady who's riding on and she's like, remember he had with that thing
the
that
Sibian.
the Sibian,
Sibian,
he had different gals ride on this
No,
thing.
it was even worse. If people wanted to promote like their band, the mom would be controlling it, or the son would be controlling it, the mom would be sitting on it, or like brother and sister, and you're sitting there.
He just went for it. and he got fined by the FCC. It was a big
for
deal.
saying like lusty lesbians and lust or something like that. It was just nothing.
It was during the Bush era,
Yeah.
and this was back when the right was trying to censor people. And this is our pivot and our shift again.
It is funny that it mostly used to be conservatives and religious groups trying to tell people what they can and can't say and do on the radio and on TV. And now it's flipped, and they're the ones talking about how important free speech is and how we should be able to say whatever we want. And then people on the left are the ones saying we shouldn't say certain words and we need to censor ourselves. And I think it's just going to keep flipping back and forth because I think everybody has a different definition of free speech at this point. You know, especially people on the left and right, they have completely different ideas of what free speech is. And whenever one side gets leverage on the other side or they have more power, then they're going to try to start telling people what they can and can't do or say. Like just with Howard Stern, for example, he didn't care who he was offending. He would try to be as edgy as possible. He would never apologize. He would do whatever he wanted. You know, he used to have on a member from the KKK, and he didn't care what people thought about it. He didn't care if people are offended. He thought people should get over it. But nowadays, he's completely changed. And now if Joe Rogan has on the wrong guest, he'll criticize him for that and act like Joe shouldn't be talking about certain things and he shouldn't have certain people on his podcast. And it's funny because now it's like Joe Rogan took Howard's spot. You know, now Joe's the biggest broadcaster pretty much. And people are always trying to cancel him for saying the wrong thing. People are trying to tell him that he can't talk about certain subjects. So it's kind of funny how that flipped. Also, I think Howard's kind of jealous of Joe as well. I think that's pretty clear. Like, I made this video about how Howard hates podcasting. It's crazy. When podcasting first started, he's like, they're going nowhere with that. They're never going to make any money. This is embarrassing. And now look at it. Like, Howard's not as relevant. He's nowhere near as relevant as he used to be. Sirius is losing subscribers. They're laying people off. And Joe's podcast is the biggest podcast in the world. So it's funny how things have switched up like that. So that's about it for this video. Thanks for watching. I just posted a new video to my Patreon about High Pitch Eric. So if you want to see that, make sure you check it out. And then hit the like button here. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about all this. Then hit the subscribe button. And I'll catch you at the next video.